Hi there, it's Meonicorn. We are already halfway in December. I cannot believe how time flies. And it's a great time for us to summarize the whole years of reading because this is the end of the year. And I found out that because of BookTube, my reading in 2017 has been broader and been more diverse. So I put together 7 books that opened my mind in 2017 and wanted to share with you today. And I just found a mosquito flying around. I cannot believe that in the mid of December there's a mosquito in my room. The first book I want to talk about here is called Small Great Things by Judy Pico. This is a book that I read before I joined BookTube, and after I joined BookTube I did a full review of this book, so I will link it down below or somewhere in the corner. When I first started reading this book, I thought maybe it's a historical fiction because it's talking about a nurse called Ruth, who is the only African American nurse in the labor department in her hospital. And one day there's a white couple who are highly racist. Can you see that? Highly racist. Who are racist, and they are having a baby. And Ruth went to help them, and they asked Ruth to leave because they're racist. But the tragedy thing is the baby dies because of his own illness, and Ruth was charged to be the murderer of the baby because of the parents are racist. The story has 3 main characters: Ruth the nurse, and the baby's father, and also Ruth's public defender. And throughout the story, you can see the opinion of Ruth from all 3 different kind of characters. And also you can see the background stories about all 3 of them. For example, you can see that how Ruth need to sacrifice some of her living conditions in order to fit in the all-white environment in her working place. And also she needs to ignore some of the inappropriate jokes because they are only jokes about race. Also, you can see how Ruth's public defender changes her mind because this is the first case that she took about race involved. However, we can see the background story of the baby's father and why he was a racist. I have heard a lot of criticism about this book because Judy Pico, apparently she is a white author. But I have read the author's note and I know that she did a lot of research, including interview a lot of African American people and also a lot of post-racist. And I think this novel is very important in current time because, as I mentioned before, I thought this book was a historical fiction, but it's not. It sets in present time, so the whole story happened when the book was published, which is 2016, and we have all seen what happened in 2017. This book, as the first few books that I read in the first few months of 2017, really opened my mind, and it was kind of go along with the Black Lives Matter movement. Although the author is not a own voice author, but the book and the story really stay with me for the whole year. So I think this is a book that opened my mind and made me face the issue that is really serious already. And speaking of Black Lives Matter movement, the second book is a young adult book which is inspired by the movement, and I think you all know what it is. It's The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. The story is about a black girl called Star one day witnessed her innocent friend got shot by the police because the police thought he was dangerous. And I also have a full review of this book. I'll link it down below in the description box. And this book has made me thought about a lot of topics. For example, the African American teenage life in high school or in college. And also, how do we as an individual to pay back to our community? Because Star's father is a really great person who wants to pay back to his community. So he did a lot of things. He protected a lot of people, and also he was misunderstood by a lot of others. And most importantly, the big topic about this book is discussing about when we face the unfairness, do we have to debate between protecting ourselves and speaking out? Or is there a way that we can do both? The third book that opened my mind is a nonfiction. It's Hunger by Grande. And also, again, I have a full review I'll link down in the description box. This is a memoir of Grande. As she suggested, this is a memoir of her body. In this book, she was talking about how it feels to be an African American woman in America, and moreover, how it feels to be an overweighted African American woman in America. And also, she was talking about the rape that she experienced when she was 12, and also all the things that she experienced because of the rape. This is a book that opened my mind because I didn't know that there are so many inconveniences if you are like largely overweight in the society. And also I was impressed by her ways of thinking and all the things that she faced and she solved in her life. I felt that I talk about this book again and again on this channel, but it's a great book. I highly recommend everybody to read it. And the next two books that I want to talk about here kind of have the same theme. The first one is When Breath Becomes Air by Polynesia. I don't know if I pronounced the author's name right, but this is an autobiography of his talking about his point of view of cancer, the terminal diseases, from both doctor and patient's point of view. Paul was an outstanding doctor and he was practicing and studying a lot about the field in lung cancer. And one day he found out that he has terminal cancers, and he started to writing this book. This is the first book that I read from a doctor's point of view to being a cancer patient. And I realized how powerless we are when we're facing the terminal illness. But in the meantime, I was astonished by how much power we still have even though we have cancer. Because in Paul's story, after he got some treatment for the lung cancer, he went back to the surgery table to be a surgeon. And he put so much love to his career, to the field that he studied, and he wanted to put all his life in. I was just so touched by his story, and I was so sorry because he didn't have the chance to finish his own book. But he got his loved wife to finish the book for him, and I'm just kind of wordless here, but this book really touched and moved me. The next book I want to talk about here is called Inmortal by Otto Grande. I said a lot of times on my channel I'm going to do a full review of this book, but I haven't done it yet, but it's coming up, I promise. This book can be divided into two parts. The first is about the mortality about the healthy elderly group people, and the second is the mortality about the illness elderly or not elderly people. And in the beginning of the book, the author talks about the difference of the structure in the society between the Western countries and the Eastern countries. And I was click with this part because I'm from Eastern countries, and in our society, at least right now, we kind of have this multi-generation families, like in whole family. So the elderly people tend to be taken care of by their children. But in the Western countries, for example, in the US, which I live in right now, I realized the same thing which the author pointed out, which is the senior people tend to have the life of their own and they live separately from their children. However, there will be some problems and conflicts when the elderly people are not able to take care of themselves. But also in the multi-generation families, when people need to take care of the seniors, they need to put a lot of energies in doing that, and they kind of like a discount in their own life. Hi guys, it's Meonicorn from the next day, and the most tragic things that can happen to a booktuber happened to me last night. I stayed up really late filming and editing, and I realized that half of my footage does not have a sound. So I just need to refilm this part now, so bear with me with the transaction, and let's continue talking about being mortal. In the second part of Being Mortal, the author talks about what is the ending of us, or what is ending of people when we have terminal illness, and what is the better communication methods between doctors and patients. And as a person, either we are doctors or patients or the family of patients, what is the better method for us to prepare for the ending of life? I like that the author interviewed and did a lot of research on this subject, and I think the book is really informative and educational, so I gained a lot of things from this book, and this book made me think a lot because like I mentioned, my family is now in a multi-generation family. However, I like to call it in the transaction of the life-ending phase or something, because part of my grandparents, they live with my relatives, and we did send one of my grandpa to the nursing house. So there are a lot of issues that I discovered personally, and also there are a lot of issues I need to think about of the future. So I really like this book. It has great value for me. And the next book I want to talk about is You Don't Have to Say You Love Me by Sherman Alexie. This is a memoir of Sherman Alexie about his mother, about his relationship with his mother. And he did mention in his book that he wrote about his father a lot because he can feel the undoubtful love that his father gave him. However, he cannot feel that way with his mother because he often feels his mother's love for him has a lot of limitations or a lot of things like that. So he really write about his mother. However, this is still a really touching book, and he reveals a lot of emotions that he had to his mother. And also, this is the first Native American book that I read, or at least I remember I read, and it just opened my mind to a lot of issues that I have not noticed before. I didn't know that the Native American has a shorter life than like other group of people in America. And I didn't know when they're children, they can only go to schools where the only white people are the teachers, and the teachers just bully all of them. And also they fight with each other all the time. And I didn't know that when there's a wildfire in the reservation of Native Americans, the white firefighter, they just simply don't go because they said we don't have like enough person. So every year they need to fight with the wildfires using their own hands and gather all the people from their reservations to fight for their own survive. It made me shameful because I did not notice a lot of things that Sherman Alexie mentioned about Native American people. However, I feel happy that I can start reading more from right now. And also, it kills me when he mentioned that all the people who bullied him in his childhood had died because they had like shorter life period. And also, it made me think a lot of things that has issues maybe not make the headline to the newspaper or the headline to your like phone feed or something, but there's still issues, and a lot of people are suffering from different problems that we still need to be aware of. And the last book that opened my mind in 2017 is this one, Depression and Magic Tricks. I actually have just talked this book from my last video, I'll link down below, and this is by Sabrina Bannon. The reason why I said it opened my mind because I have watched the performance of the author about one of my favorite poems in the book. It's called Explaining My Depression to My Mother, a Conversation. The process of watching the performance of hers is like open a new gate to enjoy poetry. Before that, I seldom read poetry, and when I try to read them, I just don't know the way to enjoy them. But now I always read a lot about the poetries I like and enjoy the poetic language in the poetries. And also, I think the most important things about enjoying a poetry is to read it in the original language. So when I read some Chinese poetry, especially the ancient Chinese poetry, I always feel enjoyable. However, if I read the English translation about the Chinese poetry, it just feels so plain and I cannot get the point. So the same thing applies to English poetry. Something just to always broke while translation. And that's top 7 books that I think opened my mind in 2017. And they have different genres and different topics. What is the book that you feel is educational to you, and what is the book that opened people's mind that you recommend? Please leave a comment down below. I'm more than happy to discover more books like that. And until next time, happy reading. Bye!